Late autumn on the Folly Brook, and the surface of the water was strewn with leaves, which formed a slow-moving procession, passing by the bankside vegetation of dense blackthorn clothed in lovely colours, rose-red brambles and old withered rush. And passing through this last flush of autumn, the three gnomes journeyed homewards. It was many weeks now since their escape from Poplar Island, but they were in no great hurry and had rested up in Crow Wood before continuing their journey. A pity we didn't find Cloudberry, commented Sneezewort. I wonder what's happened to him. I think we should mount another expedition in the spring, said old Dodder, and, What on earth was that? Asked Baldmoney. It was a warning, answered Dodder, for those were the heaven hounds making their way downstream to the sea. The heaven hounds? Queried Sneezewort. Yes, the wild geese from the land of the northern lights and the great snow queen. Oh, just mark my words, it'll be a cold and early winter, and we must now make haste for home. Quite unbeknown to the gnomes, a part of the folly that was to hasten them on their journey lay just ahead, and it was Sneezewort, now keeping the bow watch, who spotted it first. Rapids ahead! Baldmoney and Dodder looked up in horror as the Jeannie Deans was swept into the Wraith. As suddenly as they had entered the rough water, they were through it. Soaking wet and weary, but nevertheless exhilarated by the experience, they moored up for a while to rest. Well, that wasn't too bad, was it? Said Dodder, rather proud of his helmsmanship. Why don't we catch some minnow for lunch? Well, I want to be prepared in case we come across any more rapids, answered Sneezewort. I'll go up to the high ground and see what lies ahead. And he left the two of them fishing contentedly. Well, with a bit of luck, we should be home in a week or so, commented Baldmoney. He was dreaming of the old oak tree and of cosy nights spent around the fire. Dodder, however, far from dreaming, was sniffing the cold morning air, his face set in a worried frown. What is it? Asked Baldmoney. Can't you smell it? Returned old Dodder. Baldmoney sniffed too. Around them was a rank and heavy odour, evil and menacing. Is it wood dog? He asked. Dodder nodded. And as he did so, they heard the nerve-shattering scream. In an instant, Dodder was on his feet. It was a fox, all right, but what creature had it caught? Stand by to cast off quickly, he called, and leapt up the slope with a speed and agility that gave no hint of his years or his wooden legs. It was as he broke through some bushes at the top of the slope that Dodder's worst fears were realized. There was the fox, and in its vicious teeth, poor Sneezewort. Dodder knew he didn't stand a chance in combat with the fox, and yet he didn't hesitate. Advancing slowly towards the great creature, he held his knife at the ready. Oh, great God, Pan, he prayed, let Sneezewort live somehow. The fox eyed him for a minute, then dropped Sneezewort on the ground. Ah, so you think you'll get me too, do you? Well, think again. I was once caught by a wood dog, but I got away. It makes no matter how.
but ever since I've gone through life maimed and halting. Pan heard about it, though, and put a curse upon you and all your kind. From thenceforth you have been hunted by the devil hounds, and so you shall be hunted to the end. You won't frighten me like that, but here's something to frighten you. Listen.
From far away beyond the hill came the sound of a horn and the faint baying of hounds. But the fox stood its ground.
Listen again, my friend. It's the devil hounds, and they're after you.
The sound of the horn and the baying of the hounds were louder now. The fox glanced quickly about, then swung round and vanished like a shadow. And as it did so, the hunt, in full cry, swept by. The hunt had gone, and old Dodder knelt down beside Sneezewort. There was no sign of life, not even the flickering of an eyelid. He paused for a moment, then picked up the limp form gently and made his way back to the boat. "How is he?" asked an anxious Baldmoney minutes later as Dodder examined Sneezewort's wounds.
Thanks be, he's alive. He has some nasty wounds, but no broken bones, I think.
Then Sneezewort opened his eyes.
"Thanks, Dodder,"
he whispered. And as he did so, they heard the hunting horn once more, a burst of short, triumphant notes. Dodder slowly removed his cap.
"Amen," he said. "So perish all the enemies of the little people."
The following day, and the gnomes continued their journey down the folly. Sneezewort, though still in a state of shock, was well enough to take the morning air and eat a fair breakfast, and it was plain that he'd soon be fully recovered. From now on, they didn't even bother with the engine, but let their ship go with the current, accompanied by the last leaves of autumn. Within a week, and the first hard frosts had arrived. It looked as though Dodder's forecast of a cold and early winter had been correct. They passed by Moss Mill, where the wheel was still and hung with icicles. The folly was partly frozen over too, but in midstream the water was clear, and they continued to ride the current home, while the small creatures thereabouts looked on in amazement. That evening, as they rounded a familiar bend in the stream, they saw at last their own stretch of the folly, and there beyond stood the old oak tree.
But look,
stammered Sneezewort. "Someone's lit a fire in our house."
"What? How dare they? No one has any business in our house."
Quickly they moored up at the bank, then advanced suspiciously on the oak tree. But as they did so, a figure appeared in the doorway, and it was waving.
Bless my soul, I do believe it must be. Yes, it is. It's Cloudberry.
That night, what a feast they all enjoyed. Their best elderberry wine, smoked fish, honey from their storeroom, and all kinds of nuts and berries. And while they feasted, Cloudberry told them how, a year before, after scratching his name on the bridge above Crow Wood, he'd met up with the wild geese, and they'd taken him all the way to the land of the Northern Lights and the Great Snow Queen. And they listened enraptured to the story of his travels in that great white land.
"And did those same geese bring you home?" asked Dodder.
Cloudberry nodded in reply.
"Ah, well, we heard them flying over upstream, and just to think of it, you were with them."
"Well, wait till you hear our adventures, Cloudberry," put in Sneezewort. "You see, it was like this.
Do you mind? If anyone's going to tell our story, it'll be me."
And in deference to his age, Sneezewort and Baldmoney remained silent, as old Dodder thought for a moment, then started to tell their long and exciting story.
It all started in the spring, Cloudberry. It was my idea, of course. I decided that we should build a boat and set off on an expedition.
And as Dodder told the story of their expedition, the first snow of winter fell thick along the Folly Brook, and the countryside sank slowly into the long, deep sleep of winter. And with that sleep came a silence and a stillness, broken only by the call of Ben the Owl, who kept watch over the four gnomes as he'd done for years.